Welcome back, Covenantites? Welcome back, lore enthusiasts, let's say. This is Halo Canon, stopping by for a special collaboration with Covenant Canon, covering the complete known history of the Banished as we approach the launch of Halo Infinite. Nakai just covered the first half of their history over on my channel, go check out that if you haven't already. For those who have though, here's the History of the Banished, Part 2. And heads up, this will contain spoilers for Halo Wars 2 and Halo Shadows of Reach. For years, the Office of Naval Intelligence had been tracking Atriox and his Banished, watching them grow in power and influence. By 2558, Atriox had become a symbol for the Jiralhanae, with several chieftains flocking to join the Banished. On March 15th of that year, however, Atriox suddenly disappeared. Leaving his former mentor Escharum in charge of the Banished forces in the Milky Way, Atriox departed for the ultimate power in the galaxy, the Ark. Where he got knowledge of the Ark's location remains unknown, but by March 15th, 2558, Atriox had departed with a small contingent of ships, including the CAS-class assault carrier Enduring Conviction. Atriox seemingly used standard slipspace travel means, as the trip to the Ark would take a full 8 months. During this time, remaining Banished forces within the Milky Way would continue to spread their influence even into human criminal organizations, and new members would join. Among these new recruits would be the Keepers of the One Freedom under the leadership of their last Dokab, Castor. On November 25th, Atriox and his Banished arrived at the Ark and immediately began slaughtering the local UNSC presence. The Ark's portal to Earth had shut down just a month before due to the created uprising within the Milky Way, though the UNSC outpost would remain unaware of this. If Atriox and his forces knew remains unknown at this time. After clearing out most of the UNSC presence, the Banished began their operations on the Ark, seeking resources and weapons to bolster their strength. By January of 2559, the Banished effectively controlled the Ark. But then, something happens. On March 28, 2559, just over a year after Atriox and his forces departed for the Ark, a lone UNSC vessel appears. Having been delivered to the Ark by forces yet unknown, the UNSC Spirit of Fire had been declared lost with all hands years ago after disappearing from the UNSC's radar in pursuit of Covenant forces. Sacrificing their slipspace drive to deny the Covenant a fleet of Forerunner warships, the Spirit became stranded in uncharted space, and the crew entered cryosleep, hoping they might one day be rescued. 28 years later, they now find themselves face to face with a new war and a new enemy. Sending in Spartan Team Red to find the source of a UNSC distress signal, the Spartans find a lone AI, seemingly the last survivor of the Ark outpost, followed by the warlord himself, Atriox. During this first encounter, Douglas 042 is critically injured and Alice 130 is separated from the squad. Thus begins the second Ark conflict, with the Spirit of Fire doing all it can to combat the Banished. Despite being over 80 years old, the Spirit of Fire and her forces would prove to be quite the match for the Banished. Spirit forces quickly take out one of the Banished salvage operations, and after reconnecting with Alice 130, are able to put on a two-front attack against the Banished. The Spirit even manages to take out a CCS-class battlecruiser during the fighting. During this time too, Seth, a presumed dumb AI aboard the Spirit of Fire, compiles a report built from cross-analyzed transcripts and incident data provided by the recovered AI from the Ark, Isabel. The report was intended to provide information on their new foe to the Spirit of Fire's captain, James Cutter. But then, the Enduring Conviction aims her sights on the Spirit, with wings of Banshees taking out the UNSC ship's guns and defenses. To counter this superior force, Isabel proposes a two-prong attack. First, the recently recovered Douglas 042 would take control of a Forerunner particle cannon on the Ark, immobilizing the Enduring Conviction and disabling its shields. Then, with cover provided by Alice 130 and her own force, Jerome 092 would board the Conviction and plug Isabel into its systems. The mission is a success, and while Jerome holds back Banished forces, Isabel is able to take control of the Conviction's plasma projector, attacking a nearby Banished force and cutting into the Ark's superstructure. This causes automated defenses to engage, resulting in the Enduring Conviction being bisected by Sentinels. With the main threat dealt with, Professor Ellen Anders, a xenoarchaeologist stationed aboard the Spirit of Fire, is able to focus on a plan to reconnect with the UNSC. Discovering the Ark has a near-complete Halo ring in its foundry, Anders plans to deploy the ring to the old location of Installation 04, the SOL system, and drop a comms beacon which would hopefully be close enough to reach to be received. The Banished put all their effort into taking control of the Halo ring. Though unaware of how Cutter planned to use it, the ring represents a great power source, and Atriox is not about to let it fall into somebody else's hands. Atriox even offers Cutter a chance to run away, but the captain refuses. Thanks to a plan concocted by Anders, Spirit Forces are able to make easy work of the Banished on the ring. As soon as they do, however, the ring enters slipspace, taking Anders and leaving the remaining Spirit Forces behind. Unknown to the Spirit of Fire, Installation 09 and Anders would be pulled out of slipspace before reaching the SOL system by a Guardian. With nothing to do until Anders can complete her mission, the Spirit of Fire continues its battles against the Banished onslaught. A month after the loss of Halo, however, a new plan to engage the Spirit of Fire comes to fruition. After the destruction of the Enduring Conviction, a mysterious Banished leader known only as Colony began focusing its efforts on finding a new ship for the Banished, and it found one, a Despair-class fighter. A pair of Megalith or Hunters, little is known about Colony or how it formed. However, it has complete command of Letgolo forces within the Banished. Under Colony's leadership, new Letgolo forms and uses were developed, such as the giant Goliath forms or the living barriers, comprised of smaller Letgolo colonies. A barrier is erected somewhere along the Ark's north spire, and inside, Huragok are directed to grow the design seed for the Despair-class fighter. Design seeds contain the design of a ship and assemble it from surrounding resources. Upon discovering this activity, Captain Cutter deploys ODST Group Sunray 1-1 to find out what the Banished were up to. Within the day, Sunray finds the Despair-class fighter, which the Banished had intended to launch straight at the Spirit of Fire as a weapon. After clearing out local Banished forces, the Forerunner fighter is destroyed. In the aftermath, Colony would direct its focus back towards the resting place of the Forerunner key ships on the Ark. Though its actions and motivations are largely unknown to other Banished leaders, Atriox remains fully aware of Colony's activity. Another month passes, and Atriox directs two of his lieutenants, Pavium and Voridus, to salvage some ships from around the remains of High Charity, the former holy city of the Covenant Empire. Crashed on the Ark during its first conflict in 2552, the city station was sealed in a hard light dome, the area surrounding it raised by Sentinel forces to prevent the spread of the remaining flood infection within High Charity. Voridus, the brother of Pavium, had been trying to prove himself to Atriox and repeatedly failing. The raid on High Charity would seemingly be his last chance. Despite warnings from his brothers, Voridus would cut into the hard light shield around the holy city, unleashing the flood on the Ark once more. Through great effort, the Jiralhanae managed to kill a huge proto-gravemind, the central intelligence for the flood, and stop the flood threat. However, Atriox was not pleased with the outcome, telling the brothers to clean up their mess before reporting back to him. The fate of Pavium, and Voridus in particular, remains unknown. The opening of High Charity was not a complete loss, however. By the end of July, access codes for the Dreadnought, the Forerunner keyship that had once stood at the center of High Charity, were discovered. With those, a group of Banished are able to infiltrate the Dreadnought and recover 3 shards of a slipspace crystal. This crystal had once been part of a portal site on the human world of Reach before being stolen away and destroyed. The 3 shards were recovered by Tartarus and brought to the Prophet of Truth, ultimately playing a key role in getting the Covenant to the Ark in 2552. During the raid, Banished forces suffer heavy losses due to remaining Covenant forces that had holed up inside the Dreadnought since the end of the war. In the end, however, the Banished would succeed with their goal. Contacting Escharum from the Ark, Atriox instructs his former mentor to find the portal site on Reach, known only as the Portal Under the Mountain in some Covenant records. After receiving this message, Escharum deploys 3 Banished clans, including the Keepers of the One Freedom, to Reach to find the portal. Through unexpected engagements with recolonization pioneer groups and even a full engagement with what remains of the UNSC, the portal was found, allowing Atriox and a few of his top lieutenants to return to the Milky Way. While Atriox and Escharum were busy talking, Castor and his keepers board the Lich that Atriox had arrived in and return to the Ark. Atriox allows their escape, confident that Banished forces on the other side can handle the keepers. On Reach though, with a Guardian almost certainly on its way, Atriox and the Banished depart to to prepare for their next actions. Barely 2 months later, UNSC and Banished forces would clash on Installation 07, resulting in a massive loss for the UNSC. However, the details on that conflict and the ongoing conflict at the Ark have yet to be revealed. Halo Infinite, dealing with the conflict over Installation 07, is due to release later this year, and the novel Halo Divine Wind will deal with the Keepers on the Ark. Maybe around then, Nakai can make a part 3 covering the rest of the Banished story, but that's a topic for another day. Thank you, Nakai, for having me. I hope you all enjoyed this 2-part presentation. Until next time, this has been Halo Canon.